Howdy, folks. Jeff here at Savage US. I promised you guys that I would record building this server for the host of what will be Savage US. This is it's a used machine that I got for fairly cheap. It's actually from a company called Tech Mike NY. I have I'm a customer of theirs. They didn't do anything other than just sell me this great used server. It's a Dell. Oh, I don't know about the name of it. It's a PowerEdge R820. It has 256 gigabytes of RAM, 96 cores, 4 processors, and once I'm done installing the remaining 4 2 gigabyte drives, it'll have 16 terabytes of space, but I'm going to RAID 5 it, so it's going to be only 12 terabytes of space. And I was going to do a live stream for this, but I was advised against doing a live stream just in case I need to cut out areas where I'm putting my password in, so nobody knows what the password is for that. So you may have a couple of cuts here, but I'm going to try to make this as live and as personal as I possibly can. I'm not that great of a speaker, but I think I could probably help you out a little bit. For those people who are in the professional field, they'll probably have a lot of things to tell me that I'm doing wrong, but this has worked for me. This is my second server from these folks. The one that's live right now is also from them. Used servers are the best deal for small companies like me and personal people like me. I believe I've paid like a little under $1,100 for the server itself, and then the hard drives that I purchased were significantly more expensive than that because they're about 150 each, 160 each. So I think the whole server cost is about $2,500, which is still cheaper than some of those advanced gaming PCs that you can buy. But this is one heck of a server for its price, to be honest. So let's get it done. These are what each drive looks like whenever you pull them out of here. This is a blank one, empty. And I've already installed 4 hard drives. And the reason why it took so long for me to start this video is because I was waiting for UPS to deliver the other 4, but they go in just like this old spinny hard drive does. These hard drives are basically cursory hard drives to prove that the hardware works from the company who did this. And I've already unscrewed that, but they're just standard 2.5 screws. But if you're going to be using these, you got to make sure they're going to be a flat 2.5 screws. Otherwise, they're not going to go in very well because it's very particular about how it goes in from the screw here, and we'll show you in a few minutes. It's a standard SATA hard drive with your data connection, your power connection. Where's it? The power connection, data connection, but I believe that's the other way around. It can be either done for SATA, which is what I'm using locally, or the serial attached SCSI, which is more rare, but it does work really well. But I don't have the money for that or the gumption for that. Having a RAID 5 with standard SATA is just good enough for me. So forgive me. Here comes the nitty-gritty part. And also forgive me for not being able to screw in these screws as quickly as I could. My neuropathy, some of you know I've had cancer last year. And my neuropathy, I can't feel really anything here. I feel a little bit here, but almost nothing as far as fine texture. So sometimes I'll go through here between that and the shakes. Sometimes it'll get a little slow about installing things. So what I'm probably going to do, just to save time for you folks, is I'm going to show you how I put one in, and I'll stop the camera, fade it out, and make it really cool, and then we'll just go straight to the OS installation. I'll be using Ubuntu 20.04 because that's the latest long-term service of Ubuntu. I was really considering trying to go back to my roots, which is FreeBSD, and use FreeBSD as my server, but all my tests turned out to be that for applications, Ubuntu was actually a lot faster than FreeBSD was, even though FreeBSD used less memory and was a little faster on the actual raw network changes. As I said, I really want to go back to my roots with that because I do like their license a little better, and they have better overall documentation. They're just not as popular as Ubuntu is. But right now, we're using Ubuntu, I think 16.04 on the server, and haven't upgraded that for there. And that's the reason why I wanted to go ahead and get a new server anyway, because I don't like doing distribution upgrades. It scares the bejesus out of me, especially since I know that between 16.04 and 20.04, the LXD daemon, which is basically a container daemon, which allows you to do basically miniature sub-file systems of operating system running under the same kernel, basically virtual machines that actually share the same kernel as the host machine. They go to a snap-based distribution instead of an apt-based distribution. There's been a lot of people having problems with getting those virtual machines to work again after the fact. So it's just better just to do a clean install and just migrate those virtual machines. The most important thing, because I did this while putting these in, is not to put the interface this way, because it doesn't know how to get to the computer if you do it that way. I'm embarrassed to say that, but I'm just happy letting folks know my mistakes, and I know how to fix them too. Mistakes happen no matter how experienced you are or how aware you are, but I had a lot on my mind too. Okay. Hopefully this is a magnetic screwdriver. Otherwise this is going to be a lot harder. Be a lot easier to see the screws with my reading glasses on. That is not magnetic, so I'm going to go to this one, even though it's a slightly harder to cut. Or screw that, because it doesn't quite get into the groove of the Phillips assistance. Yep, when you have the shakes, things are hard. And I've got two on there. That's right, I got one in the seat. Yeah, the way. And unfortunately, this server does not have an HDMI out. Otherwise, I would be able to record the screen directly so you guys can see, but I don't do that. So I'm going to try, and whenever I switch over to the actual OS installation and the RAID setup, that you can see the what I'm doing with the BIOS and the screen with the camera I'm using a little better. And I'll be honest with you, I'm probably about to pause this if I can't get the screw in there with my shakes and my fingers and just work with it from there. Because this is a bit embarrassing. I've decided to go ahead and finish these other two drives and just fast forwarding. I'll just gonna keep my mouth shut and just fast forward so you can see that I'm actually doing it. Jeez, just load it now. Maybe. Screen goes. I only work with hardware like once every 5 or 6 years. I'm not a hardware guy. I should be, considering I love Linux, but I'm not. I'd use Linux full time, but there's a lot of applications that just don't run on it. I would love for Affinity Serif to have a Linux version of their stuff because as much as I like my Mac laptop, I just don't feel free. But wow, that thing's battery life is amazing. It's the original M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch, and I got it just because I wanted to dip my fingers in, or dip my toes into the processor and ecosystem, and I've been really happy with what I saw. It's a really good development machine. It's just since I'm using Rust now mainly as my main uh, programming language and development environment, it had some hiccups, but we worked around that. It's but still not nearly as nice as it is on Linux. Um, Currently, Savage GUS is actually running on TypeScript, which is basically it's a typed version of JavaScript, and we're using Node.js and Express as the server, and then we're using React and of course JavaScript as the front end. And it's getting a little long in the tooth. Version 3 was not much more than a facelift of some of the bugs that were already there in version 2. And this version 4, which I'm working on now, is a complete and utter ground up rewrite of Savage GUS in Rust. Control R. So it should be screaming, and I am considering having the libraries that I'm building, the common libraries between the front end and the back end, to open source that, so other folks can make maybe an interface that's going to be native to some folks for like computers or I'm sorry, a non-web interface, and I may end up doing a non-web interface myself, and maybe have a single application which may run on your computer completely offline. You can just sync up and store things there. It's already halfway there with version 4's interface because it's actually doing a lot of local storage caching. Come on, this thing's being slowpoke. Initializing devices. And it says 100%. I don't think it's 100%. Let's see. Well, let's try the import to 4 configurations, and maybe we can use those to rebuild. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dang. This group. Delete this group. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Let's make a new 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But that's not giving me the RAID option. Where was that? It's been a couple of days. F2. Is that it? I don't think that's it either. I'll be floundering here for a second as I remember how I did the RAID 5 the first time. Boop, 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 boop. This is embarrassing. Ah, there it was. Found it. RAID 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Virtual drive size is just under 12 gigabytes. Call this root. Call it default, call it anything, but root tells me that's the root drive. Okay, it's recommended. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Cancel. Initialize them. Yep. I need a battery. I do want to force a hot spare. Awesome. And we have what we need to do. Escape. And okay. Got my drive. And plug it to the USB in the back. I can do it in the front too. This is just like any other computer. There's a USB drive in the back, which I've got one of the ports connected to this keyboard. And the boot disk that I made for Ubuntu 20.04 server is now in there too. So theoretically, it should pop up here. Read the words. There it goes. I was sitting there waiting on it to do something. It was waiting on me to do something. Man-machine interface there was a little off, mainly because of the man. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. And this time I won't have to do anything other than the boot menu, which should be F11 if I recall. It'll show up here in a second. I'm actually surprised the fans didn't spin up on this, but since it wasn't the initial cold boot, it doesn't need it. I really like what they've done with the Ubuntu server interface for the installation. It's so much easier than it was before, and it looks pretty. It's easy to work with, and even imports my public key for my SSH logins because I don't like to use passwords. I'm very particular about what I use for security, and I don't like to have passwords open for the base system. Yeah, pop up here, say which one it is. Come on. And just try and spin up a little bit. Nope, it's still thinking. BIOSes get slow. Got a light on the USB, so it should be there. Aha. LF11, like I said, EUFI Boot Manager. Entering EUFI Boot Manager. Da-da-da-da. Bum, bum, bum. As I said, this is nothing special for the IT pros, but as I said, some people would like to understand or have an idea what it's like to actually build a system, mostly from the ground up. All I'm going to do here is install the base host installation, install LXD, which is Ubuntu's virtual machine manager for the kernel and for LXC containers. And then I'm going to create a new one, install a basic version of, or a development version of version 4, including a MySQL background and everything else. I'm going to have a few scripts to speed that up. And also before that, I'm going to set up LXD so you can see it and make sure that the bridge works, because you have to have bridge networking if you want to have a virtual machine actually go outside of your network, or unless you want to do some sort of proxying. But I like to have the actual virtual machines being directly on the network, because it makes things a little easier to work with. It don't have as much control because I don't have as much firewall control, but I can handle that pretty easily with the firewalls on each virtual machine. If I boot menu, now it should show up for disconnected. Boop. Try or install Ubuntu server. This is now being running code with the installation off of the USB disk. So try or install. I'm not going to try it. I'm going to install it. I'm hoping these AirPod Pros are not sounding too terribly bad. I've always had an issue with them sounding a little tinny compared to a good condenser mic, but this is a lot easier for me to work with and having hands-free and no wires and not getting all tangled up. I'm already having enough issues with my hands and everything else. Plus, I'm not good at making videos. And here comes for the installation options. Should be asking for network configuration. I think is the first thing it does. But I figured it out. No issues. The start job is running. This has always been a little bit slow sometimes. It kind of depends on its mood for the slowing. Yeah, it's not doing too bad. I had it not lock up, but take a minute or so at, I believe, the disk manager being slow, or I don't remember. LXD activate. Nice. Yeah, as it's running snaps. And it should be popping up the actual installation screen here any second. We don't need a cloud init. It's trying to look for basically a initialization server for setting up hardware as a service. I think it's called a MAS, but I don't remember what the M stands for off the top of my head. It basically allows you to have these physical servers, but they're connected to a controlling server, and you can actually do your initialization and all your setup via the controller. So it becomes basically a slave is not the word you're not supposed to be using anymore, but basically it's a slave that listens to that controller and does all its hardware configuration, all of its virtual machines as per what the controller does. Worker, I think, is the word they're supposed to be using now, because there are PC issues with using master and slave, but for us old grognards who just kind of still say master and slave when it comes to computers, because they're just machines anyway. Yeah, controller and worker, I think, is what they're using over. Aha! English. Update to the new installer, because I always like to have the latest version since we're already on the network. 10 megabytes. I don't have the fastest internet in the world. I'm in the podunks of cable. We don't even have fiber in this town. Well, we do have fiber in this town for some of the larger businesses, but as far as the local, it's just now getting out this year to some areas in this little town. And configuration for the keyboard is fine. Ubuntu server, but don't want minimized. Don't need third-party drivers. So I'm not doing any MPEG encoding on the root server. And it's basically telling me here that I could do DHCP for 1 when it just actually got my IP address. I do not mind my IP address here being seen because this is just a simple 192.168 private network. So if you can get into my network, you know this particular server is going to be 98. But if you ever get into my network, this is probably going to be gone by the time you get there. We have 4 network interfaces: EN01, EN01, EN02, 3, and 4. I will be setting all 4 of those up as a bridge. That way I can, if I need to use more dry or more network spots, we can use those as well. We don't need to create a bond. We don't need a proxy address. And the mirror address is correct. We definitely want to use the entire disk. It's saying 12.73 terabytes. We're going to set up as an LVM group. I do not want to encrypt it because if I ever reboot it, I have to go to the console and type in the password for it. So definitely don't want to do that with there. I would love to be able to put like a USB drive with a key on it, but that just doesn't work that way, unfortunately, yet. I have hacked it on my personal machine to do that, but it's too much of a pain. And now file system summary says it's going to do 100 gigabytes for an LVM volume. It's going to have a 2 gigabyte space for the boot drive, which doesn't really need to be that big, but that's fine. and an EF drive, an EFI drive also for 1.9, a little more than 1 gig. Also doesn't need EFI, only needs like 100 meg or so as well. But I'm going to let it do its thing. That will give us 12.63 terabytes of free space on this particular drive, and that's all SSD and RAID 5. So done. And it's going to ask me, are you sure you want to do it? Well, yes, I am. My name. Most folks know me, so I'm not worried about this. We're going to call this Umbra because I like the darkness. And I'm going to move it over here. I don't think I got them out. Oh, I didn't. It's a disadvantage of having the neuropathy going. Do I like the SSH server? And I do want to import an SSH ID identity. This is really cool. This is one of the neatest things I think they've added to this. And if I do it from GitHub, I'm a GitHub developer, and I can actually do WF. So you can actually see my repositories I have open at jdgwf or jdgwf at GitHub. If I press enter here, it actually will go to GitHub, fetch my SSH key, and say yes. Actually, that's a public key. I don't really care if you see that or not. I don't know why you just got paranoid. Other than just habits. And plus, I could have always canceled that out, so can't see that either. Just kidding. And it's actually doing its thing. Right now, it's installing missing packages, installing packages on target system, EFI boot manager, grub, and a shim for sign for the sign kernel, whatnot. It's configuring the SCSI service, configuring RAID service. Now we're installing the kernel. So we're going to let that do its thing. It does take a while. I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, or I can just let it go and let you see it do its thing. Fast forward if you are, I'll put a little bookmark for whenever it actually gets done. It takes about 3 minutes for it to actually install the system, but it takes a little longer for it to actually do a little update at the very, very end when it actually does basically apt-get update, apt-get upgrade before the system becomes live. It's good stuff. I'm really happy with the way Ubuntu is done here, but I really, really, really wanted to have a FreeBSD as the host, but I just could not quite justify it with the lack of containers and everything else. And plus, I have other customers. Savage US is definitely a small container on a big server when it comes to this. And I have other customers with several mail servers that are here. That's one of the reasons why it is a 96 core CPU and so much memory. It's probably 6 to 8 times bigger than the current server, so it should be quite beefy. All my tests have been really, really promising. It is now downloading and installing the security updates. This is the apt-get update and apt-get upgrade command that does in the end. We can even view the full log, where it's unpacking every little thing that's been updated since then. This is actually the installation of 12.0.1, so there's still some things that needs to be updated since then. But as I said, this is just the host. I am not going to be installing too terribly much on the host itself. HTOP, I think, is really going to be the only thing I'm going to be installing, because I like HTOP. It's a little easier to read than the standard top. Top is basically it's the same thing in Windows as the system manager, where you can see all the processes, how much memory each one's using, and other I/O services. It's just, but it's all text-based like this is. Now, if I was going to install a desktop, then we have lots of desktop options where you have the pretty graphics and stuff like that works just like Windows does. But Linux by itself is more of a command line based system at the root of it all, and so is Windows if you really want to get right down to it. But they make it so integrated, and you can never really tell if there's actually a CLI interface or not. The base Windows kernel is text-based. They just have a lot of hooks so that it actually catches the graphics early. This does take a bit. Soon it will say you're done, reboot, and then it'll get to the reboot, and you'll say remove the installation media, which is the USB drive. It'll be done. The installation was complete a while back. As you can see, this little there, you can rewind and see when it was done. It only takes minutes to install. But since I have a fairly slow internet connection, probably only 50 megabits per second or something like that, it's can be a little slow. Some of this is actually mainly the installation times. The current server's got a boot drive, let's see, and two 1 terabyte mirrored virtual machine drives, and two 4 terabyte mirrored archive drives for basically holding folks' email and whatnot that doesn't get hit all that often. So this is really not going to be that much faster as far as the write speed and MySQL stuff and all that goes compared to the current server, because it's already an SSD, but these SSDs are going to be faster, so it's good stuff. And between that and also Rust, whenever my test of the Rust version of version 4 versus the current one is night and day difference. I didn't think it'd be that much of a difference, but it's easily 10 times faster on the transfers and setting things up. Really surprised. Installation complete. And that says it's reboot now, and we're good to go. So let's reboot now. It does its thing. It's going to say here in a moment to remove the installation medium, which is that little dude where the cat's hid. Turds. And enter. And it's going to reboot. Again, we had to go through the slow firmware boot process. Once we're booted back up, we will install the LXD, or initialize the LXD system. Well, no, first we're going to do is create the actual network bridge, so which all interfaces can go against it. And then we're going to initialize LXD and use that new bridge, and then launch a test of Ubuntu 12.01.04 as a container, basically a virtual server underneath this base system. Let me grab my Macintosh laptop as well. Let's see how this is going to look whenever I work with it. Yeah, oh, it's not going to be too terribly bad. Good. We'll get to that in a moment. Glossy screens are annoying, but nice at the same time. I'm not too sure if I like them or not. I think I like them because they are prettier and they seem brighter, but if you put any light on it, then you have to start moving your head or moving it around. If it was a desktop, I think I'd be more annoyed with it, because you can't really move a desktop screen as easily as you can a laptop screen. There it goes. That is Linux. And the mode change, so it's a little prettier. This may be the part where it's slow. I don't remember. It's kind of stuck at host and network name lookups. And I do know that I will have to blank out a little bit of the screen because it's going to show the host private key file on the initial login. And I can't let you see that because that's going to be pretty important for you guys to leave out. Well, pretty important for me to leave out. That's assuming I don't reinstall between here and there, which is a possibility. Waiting for the network to be configured. This is ridiculous. That was it. Yeah, network being configured. Didn't have that problem on the startup, on the initial. And if I recall, once I set the bridge up, it doesn't have a problem either. I'd say it's a DHCP problem, but it's not. It does time out, or not time out, but it actually does work eventually. It just takes a bit. Anytime now. There it goes. Yep, I should have. And here in a second, you're not allowed to see that. Control D, and we're at the login. After I blanked out the login there. So let me pull it back here. Jeff is my username. I'll let you guys know that one. Did I type it right? I did. All right, first thing, let's take a look at the network. IPA. We have a Ethernet going to 192.168.103.98. There's nothing on network 2, network 3, or network 4. So sudo forgive my typos. Again, we're having issues with my fingers. Vim, I don't think Vim's going to work. And HTOP. So I like to have Vim installed. I could have used VI just as easily, but I like the prettiness and the colors that, whoops, the wrong password. And, oh, what? No, Vim and HTOP are already installed. I'll have to remember that next time. What we're going to do is I went to Etsy Netplan, and I'm going to edit the installer config YAML file. And I'm going to set DHCP on false of all these, because the bridge will be handling it. Nope. Boop. I'm not going to show you how to use Vim. That's thousands of places you could check that out. But 1, 2, bridge, interfaces. Is it interface or interfaces? Nope, not yet. BR0 is what I'm going to be calling this interface. Interfaces. I'm going to do ENO, not 0. ENO1, ENO2, ENO3, ENO4, which basically means it's going to be using any of those interfaces for a connection to the bridge. So that way, if one interface goes out, I can plug it into the other one and everything just works, because just in case hardware fails. That's just how it works. And DHCP 4 is true. And I right quit, sudo netplan, apply. So what I did, this is configuring the plan, or the high-level function of how the network should be set up on this machine. Basically, I turned off the Ethernets themselves, the actual connecting straight to the Ethernet for the network, and I created a bridge interface, which are going to be using those. What is that? All 4 of the other interfaces, and it will actually use DHCP to have that bridge interface there. So let's see if I actually did this right, or there could be an error, because they may not like the fact that I used the collar there, but because I didn't try that beforehand. I didn't like that. Unknown key bridge. Oh, the bridge is. Now, by IPA, we should have nothing on ENO1, EO2, EO3, or 4. BR0, which is my new bridge interface, has an IP address of 192.168.1.3.111. And if I ping Google, it says it's live. So right now we've got a working bridge interface. I'm going to verify that I can ping 111 from my Macintosh laptop. Can you see that? Not really so much. Yeah, let me see if I can make that larger. Is that better? There it is. Ping 192.168.13.111. And I'm getting a ping reply, which means that bridge interface is working just fine. So I'm going to close this out. And we're going to do an LXD, sudo LXD init. And what this is going to do is basically we're going to initialize the LXD daemon, which is going to handle the Linux containers, Linux virtual machines, Linux kernel virtual machines that LXD can handle. I used to use Versh as my LXD interface. I'm sorry, my KVM interface. But since I had worked with that, they've added KVM support straight into LXC, so I can do everything in the same interface, which is quite nice. It'll even grab the IP address whenever I do an LXC list. It does take a second for it to init, and it's going to pop up and ask a whole bunch of questions. I do not want to use LXD clustering because I only have 1 or 2 machines. Do want to configure a new storage pool, and we're going to call it default. We're going to use ZFS as the background, and yes, we do. Do we want to use an existing block device? No, because we're just using the file system. Loop device is going to be 19 gigabytes. Do you want to connect to a MAS server? No. That was the MAS that I mispronounced earlier. Machines as a server. And would you like to create a new local network bridge? No, I do not, because I've already made one. Do you want to configure LXD to use an existing bridge? Yes, I do. And the name of it is going to be R0, which is what we did in the net plan here, BR0. Would you like to use the LXD server to be available in the network? No, I do not. Do you want to use the state? Yes. Basically, the cached images for the roots to update automatically in the background so that I don't have to redo them. Would you like to use nope. And that's it. So I can do an LXC launch Ubuntu 20.20.04, and we'll call this test. Now it's going to do, it's going to create the machine. It's going to go to the internet and grab a base image for the virtual container. Doesn't take long. And in a moment, it's going to say it started. Again, I'm going to bring up here. Can you guys still see that? Good. Just as good as you can, at least the other. It's going to say created. And done. So if I do a LXC list, we have the test server running on 192.168.13.112 because I have a DHCP server and I bound all the bridge interfaces to DHCP. It grabs the IP address automatically. So if I do a ping of 112, that is the virtual machine running inside the host machine replying. And I don't believe it actually has SSH going. It makes no difference anyway. Actually, it probably does, but I don't have a way to log in because it has a default Ubuntu user, which the first thing I like to do is I've got a script which takes care of that. But let's go into the virtual machine by LXC exec test, which is the name of the machine, and then bash, which is the shell. And at this point, we are now on the root user on the virtual machine test, running on Linux 5.15 and htop. And even though it is a virtual machine, it has full access to every one of the cores and all the memory, all 252 gigabytes of usable space of the virtual host, unless I limit it down, which I usually do. I usually limit it to about a quarter of the machine's resources. And quit. And I'm going to wget. Is that installed? It is. Good. Wget http nexi, which is a local server here. Go.sql. Go.sh. And I don't remember if there's another one I need to download. Yes, there is a sync. Sync MySQL. sh. Good. So first thing we need to do is sh go. I may have to edit this out here because there may be some things that you're not supposed to be seeing here. Dash. Basically, it's going to do an apt update, apt get, install a whole bunch of stuff on the server, rename the default Ubuntu user, which is the standard user that comes out through, to my username and everything that needs to be done. So I can sudo from there because I like to have my name as the login instead of just a standard Ubuntu. It's also going to install Rust. A few things you can see, a whole bunch of things are being installed here, including the build essentials, which is necessary for that. This will not take long. It's installing the MySQL server. It's also installing, it's not installing Nginx because that's what I use for my proxy, my reverse proxy for Savage US. And this takes a lot less time than the initial installations, updates and installations. It's kind of weird how it's so slow on some things and really fast on other things. MySQLD will log errors to var log MySQL and other things. And once that's done, it should be copying my SSH key into the directory it needs to go. Let's see, this is the Rust up installer. Welcome to Rust. I do want to proceed with the default installation. Really like Rust. I like Python. I like JavaScript. I don't like JavaScript. I like TypeScript, and I like the performance of JavaScript. But Rust has been one heck of a ride for somebody who's been using high-level stuff for the last 15 years. I used to be a C programmer and a C++ programmer, but nobody ever needs it. Yes, for the fingerprint for GitHub. It's now cloning the repositories for front-end, Savage Libs, and components. Actually, it says it couldn't do it because it doesn't have my SSH key. And it did not do that either. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it, move my SSH key into where it needs to go, and we'll rerun the let's see, maybe not v4. Yes, I'll have to do that. All right, I'm going to pause it real quick, and I'll be right back. Sorry about the wait on that, guys. I had to move some stuff that needed to be there, and I forgot that I actually was supposed to install everything on a non-root user on there. So I had to rename the user to Ubuntu, like I took from Ubuntu to Jeff, like I said. So I did that, moved my SSH keys into my SSH directory, moved my MySQL authentication to where it should be as well, and we're going to let this go. And we're going to do a bash of go again, so we can install Rust on this machine. A lot of the stuff's going to try to do it again, or try to do all the installations again, but it's already done, so it should just skip right through it. And since I just recently used sudo with that particular user, it just went through. One for installing Rust. And it's going to say that I need to update an environment variable. I'm not going to bother with that because I'm going to have to drop out of this non-root user and reset the SQL password and create the database there, because right now I don't know what the user is. So we're going to go ahead and say yes to authenticity of GitHub. And this time it actually grabbed the files and they're setting it through. So if I do an ls of v4, we see that we have a front end, a savage libs, a server, and standard components directory. So I'm going to back out of here and go home, and we're going to do a MySQL -u root. Actually, I don't need to do that because whereas root is already. And we're going to pipe in Jeff go.sql, which should create the user, rename the and reset the root password. You are not allowed to create a user with Grant. Oh, of course they're always changing something. Let's see if this works though. su-jeff. Switch user is what su means. And MySQL savaged. Good. So that did work at least that much. And what are we going to do here? Desk savaged. And semicolon. And there's no exist day. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this out and create the, well, let's MySQL. Oh, of course it did. Su Jeff. I'm floundering here, guys. Sorry. We're going to try this. We're going to do, since I have the password set, -u root MySQL. Okay, so the password I have in there was changed, but the root user does not have that password. That's the reason why I said it couldn't do what it needed to do. That's not a big deal. Create database. Savaged. Semicolon. And since database exists, why didn't that work? Oh, because there was no table. Goodness, I must be show tables. This should be empty because it's a new empty one. So everything is set up. Let's do a sh sync. Actually, this needs to be in a different directory because this is also moving data over. Move sync to v4. v4. rm server data make server and sh sync MySQL. So what's going to do is that's going to connect to the current server and grab all of the MySQL data and the data itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and let it do its thing. It takes a while because it's going to be syncing up all the user images and stuff like that. So I'm going to pause for a bit. Finally, the data directory and the data from MySQL has been copied over. As you can see, that was a 2.8 gigabyte MySQL dump file, and there's quite a bit of data. I don't know how much it is. I can find out here in a few minutes. Go into server data, du-h-d1, which means we're going to do a human readable amount of space and only one level deep. We have 2.9 gigabytes of data that with images and all the other there. So overall, Savage US runs about anywhere from 6 to 7 gigabytes of our hard drive space. Not too terribly bad. But I've recently moved from JPEGs to WebP, and that was about a 30% savings on the actual file system setup. So let's go to front end. Let's make sure I have cargo installed. We do, good. Be nice if I actually typed it. There we go. And we're going to do a trunk build release. And I need to do a cargo install trunk, and this will take a few minutes. Trunk is a WASM builder for Rust, which creates WASM projects. WASM is a web assembly, not a language, but more of a virtual machine code, which is basically assembly for the web, which is completely cross-platform and cross-browser, cross everything. It allows you to create really, really fast running code that runs on the browser or under any other JavaScript environment, such as Node or even Deno, which is Deno, which is a Rust implementation of Node. This will take a little bit to compile. Right now, it's just fetching the changes. It's actually doing better than I thought it would. It's now building. It's not bad. That's actually faster than my laptop is. And it's pretty fast. I placed this here so I can move the Mac, or I placed this here so I can move the Mac screen over so you can see a quick little preview of what I've got working with version 4 right now. It's a little behind because I haven't done a push for it in a while, but there's enough there for you to be able to see and get an idea what the new interface is going to look like. I'm building from the ground up, which means I'm doing all the stupid, boring stuff like the admin screens and other things before I get to the character creator. So the things that you're really going to be most important about, I haven't got to yet. Or things that are going to be more important to you, I haven't gotten to yet, but we'll get there. It's better to build it from the ground up so I can have all the components I need and reuse them as much as I need possible to keep the binary file size down, and it makes it easier to manage, just in case somebody has to pick up the project after me. Hopefully later than sooner. It's actually building trunk now. I do like the WASM interface, but it still needs a lot of love as far as interoperability with the document object model, which is basically what the web browser uses to create all the components and what's necessary there. It's just it's real slow, and you don't have native string copies between WASM and JavaScript, and they could do a whole lot more with integration to make things faster and easier for WASM modules. Because right now it's not much faster as far as user interface goes than the React Native, or not the React Native, but the React JavaScript DOM model that I'm using now. It's just a whole lot faster in the back end, and a lot faster as far as data transfer and data processing goes. You're going to see a huge difference in how quickly it handles it's the data and the logins and everything else. It's just the actual interface is not going to be that much faster. In some cases, even slower. But I'm still working on fixing that, because even some of the admin screens are a little slower than they should be. I mean, I can see that it's there, but for some reason the DOM is just taking a few seconds to catch up with the changes. Each processor is a lot slower than my MacBook Pro, but got 96 of them, so this is probably just a single thread taking a little while. I guess I could figure that out by going to Alt F2. HTOP. Very minimal usage it made, just actually got done. 4.5, 2.6, it's not much. Alt F1. Yeah, it did. Of course it did. All right, let's try trunk build release. All I did was up arrow twice there for those folks who don't know Linux. And I did something wrong there. Let's take a look here. Cancel. Oh, you just got me out at. Something has changed. Huzzah. That's not even my data. That's not even my module. Go ahead, pause it, and let's see if maybe the WASM isn't installed. It should be, though. Give me a moment. Yeah, it looks like that was the issue. For some reason, it did not install the WASM. Let's see if that fixed it. Yep, I did not have the WASM target installed. For some reason, whenever I ran the my little script to install things, it didn't get to that point and aired out. That's okay. I figured it out, and we're almost there. As soon as this builds, we'll go to the server, which builds a lot faster than the front end because all the translators and recoders for that are a little slower than standard Rust compilation, which is legendary for its slow compilation, but it's checking for everything as far as member leaks go. Good stuff. Sure makes system level programming a lot easier. This last little bit takes bit as it compiles all the Rust code over to the assembly, WebAssembly. And yes, I have quite a few unused variables, but those are placeholders until I get to that point. A lot of warnings, but that's mostly unused variables or imports that aren't used. Come on. Come on. Of course she does. Bella wanted to say hi, but maybe she doesn't. Oh, maybe she does. Come here. Hello again. Hello again. We're nearly done, guys. This is the display file system, and we have 18 gigabytes used of at the root. See, something's wrong here. Well, not wrong, but why is it saying available only 75 gigabytes? Why is it saying only 100? There's 126 gig. May have been a weird installation issue. That should be several terabytes. That's okay. I'll fix that later. So I won't feel bad about hiding all that. And we're back to the main screen, and that's done. Let's go to server, cargo, run, release. Could do debug just as easily. This won't take long. That should be the last I need of the server keyboard for this little deal. has to do a little bit of compiling of the front end because I'm using server-side rendering to push up a page before the browser loads it and then loads the WASM and then replaces the DOM with the WASM generated DOM. Three more, and this is the part where it's actually going through 515 and 517. Savage front end. This will be the slowest part because that's a lot of code I've got in there. I don't have the environment file for the connected to the database and the secrets and all that installed. That's easy though. Env Jeff. Oops. Jeff env tech.env. Try this again. Cannot find the directory. That's easy enough too. Well, sh makes some links, which is fine. That just basically made a symbolic link to the public directory that's just created by the front end, and that should work. 48 workers have started. ActiveX runtime is found and started the ActiveX runtime. So at this point, on my Mac, let's make sure there's no crazy there. I've got test 5001. Enter, and there's Savage 4. And it's trying to connect to, I see. Doesn't like the fact that we're connected, or we're connecting via non-secure on a non-local host directory. Well, what I can do is I'll show you instead what it looks like on real. On the all right, this is on the live test server. We have game data. Let's see if we can look at all of our armor here. And that's fairly quick. This is the admin section. This is what we use to enter data. This is going to be the same interface as what you're going to have whenever you do your custom items, except for the fact you will not have this admin tab. If you don't like the pages, which is just fine, we can click on the no pages and it goes away. Very, very similar to stuff I have my stuff, which we have character settings. I don't think it's actually loaded yet. Refresh one more time. I think it may have started too soon. Or my network's being contrary. This should actually work. Let me log in here. I should have known that, and it's almost a little embarrassing that I forgot it. Then again, I could be wrong. Well, here's the live server. Or you show the admin area, but we have, here's your private cell, your public settings, your notifications. Subscriptions are still a to-do, and devices, it's a new thing for, well, you'll actually see it everywhere you've logged in. And if you don't like that somebody may have logged in at certain IP addresses, you can actually delete them and enter a friendly name for like your laptop or whatnot. And then we have, can't really do much with the saves there, but every save now has, it's kind of a blending of the current character sheets and or characters area and the saves. I'm trying to make it a little more integrated because I've had a lot of good feedback about how this works, or how the character sheet looks like. So we're going to be able to view, edit. You can even duplicate right here or delete. You have settings, races, the bestiary, gear, which the only thing I do have, I've got the gear items able to be edited, the custom armor items edited, and weapons able to be edited, including the profiles. This is actually not quite done. I'm still working on that particular edit form, but the armor is definitely working well, and so are the hindrances. The weapons and edges are really the most complicated of the two forms, the edges being the most complicated. Vehicles are not quite there because this is the old sci-fi companion vehicles, and that's gonna probably be one of the last things I do, because since the new sci-fi companion is probably coming out the next couple of years, it's not really as important to me to have anything other than just a visible there. But I'm going to try to get that done before we launch either way. Campaigns are also a complete to-do, but it's going to be a complete rewrite from the ground up. Still going to be using your same data and everything else, but it's going to be a lot more real time, as I'm going to be using WebSockets to tell the sessions between them what's necessary to be done. So it's going to make things a lot quicker. The initiative tracker is going to be a lot snappier for folks. It's going to be nearly real time. I've had them side by side on the same, going to the same server outside, and it's just really nice, much faster than it is currently if you go to the regular. And I've already tested that with the React version and the Node.js version, and that's the way to go. It's WebSockets are definitely the way to go for real-time collaboration. But that's it. That's how we build a server, and I'm going to see why the server didn't do all 12 terabytes of formatting on that root drive, and probably reinstall completely so that I don't feel too terribly bad at you possibly seeing a couple of private keys in there. So, all right, have a good one. Thanks for watching.